Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about Guardian ranks, more specifically what's wrong with them and how they can be improved, along with my own personal interpretation of what each rank's objectives should be. If you've been playing Destiny for a good while now, chances are that you've seen this system in play for some time now. Introduced with the release of Lightfall, Guardian ranks was a new system for players to explore, and if you've been playing for even longer, you've probably noticed that this system isn't the greatest. Far from it, actually. So let's begin with what's wrong with this system, break it down to its core purposes, and try to fix it. Or, well, state what exactly is wrong with it and give my idea on how to improve upon it. Guardian ranks were made with the intention on being a progression system for newer players and something the more experienced player could do to work towards. They have certain objectives that would help players understand what they need to do next and help understand the core gameplay of Destiny, ranging from doing strikes to raids to GM content. Quoted from the PlayStation article discussing Guardian ranks. At their core, Guardian ranks are a visual shorthand that will let players easily understand the experience and abilities of other Guardians they encounter. Players who complete activities in the game will move up through the Guardian ranks hierarchy as a natural result of playing the game, and some ranks will only be available to those who complete certain activities such as dungeons, nightfalls, or raids. They would reset every season back to originally rank 6, but then got changed to rank 5. This resets because of the seasonal objectives you need to do to progress. Now, how do Guardian ranks work in practice? Well, they're just triumphs at the end of the day. Ranks 1 through 5 are pretty much the new light tutorial objectives. Talk to X, Y, and Z, explore a destination, do a few campaign missions, and etc. 6 through 11 are what are meant to be the repeatable ranks. They are the ranks that actually reset because of the seasonal objectives as discussed prior. The objectives here are things like complete the campaign, seasonal challenges, do nightfalls, solo lost sectors, dungeons and raids, and of course, commendations. So do the intentions of Guardian ranks line up with the actual system in practice? Well, if they did, I wouldn't be making this video. What would someone assume the system is supposed to do without knowing anything about it? What I mean by that is, if you just loaded into the game and had stumbled upon this system without any prior knowledge about it, what would you think the purpose of it would be? I'm going to guess and say that it's just another triumph page to keep you busy throughout the season. It's kind of just there to do if you have nothing else to do. Something that is supposed to keep you engaged. This isn't in the context of a new player though. I believe that ranks 1 through 4 do an okay job at guiding new players. But let's say for returning players, it's just another triumph page. This ideology isn't just what I think, as I know many more people probably see it that way as well. It's just something that's not really worth doing because it doesn't really feel like you're progressing towards something, since it will just reset in a few months anyway. What I'd consider some of the major issues with the system as of now is this. 1. It doesn't do a good enough job trying to show people what to do next. 2. It doesn't really have any incentive for people to continue to go for the max rank. 3. It resets too often in my opinion. 4. It doesn't even include all aspects of the game for requirements, for example Crucible, Trials, and Gambit. 5. To be honest, it's far too expensive to really invest into, especially for newer players. Since you need to do every raid and dungeon for requirements, you basically need to own everything in the game. We have quite a bit of free endgame content that honestly is more than enough. The only thing that I will say is that we don't have enough free dungeons in the game. We have Prophecy as the only free dungeon at the moment, but I'll talk more about this later. 6. It gatekeeps a lot of the game from players. For example, weapon and armor mods, upgrade materials, and even triumphs as a whole are all gatekept behind hitting certain ranks. 7. Commendations as a requirement needs to go. Commendations should be a system that is purely optional, since they're supposed to just be a little fun thing that you can do to show your appreciation for your teammates at the end of activities. But since there's a requirement, it loses its meaning entirely. I remember when Guardian ranks were first introduced, people were farming Master Wellspring to get easy commendation score just because of the high score required to progress through ranks, which kind of defeated the whole point of the system. 8. This is extremely subjective, but it should be 10 ranks instead of 11. This is purely for display purposes only. I think 10 looks better than 11 as a prestigious rank. And it's totally not because it was easier to think of 10 ranks worth of objectives rather than 11. Although as they are now, rank 1 isn't really even a rank. While I believe Guardian ranks should be a progression system meant to help and guide newer players on what to do, while also giving the more seasoned players a title to wear and work for. Basically do what its original intention was, but actually keeping that intention through and through. However, I believe that there needs to be more built into the system, such as having more aspects of the game included and having harder objectives as well. The objectives now seem like they were just kind of thrown together at the last minute and don't really have much thought put into them really. This was done in Lightfall, and since then, they haven't really bothered expanding or improving upon them since. Sure, we have different objectives when the new stuff comes out, but it's the same thing with a new name on it. Take for example the previous rank 11 objectives. At Lightfall's launch, it was stuff like Guild Conqueror, Complete Mastery of Nightmares, Solo the most recent dungeon, and Complete Master Mode of the latest dungeon. At this time, it was Spire of the Watcher. Fast forward to Season of the Wish, and the objectives are Guild Conqueror, Complete Master Crow to Zen, Solo the most recent dungeon, and Complete Master Mode of the recent dungeon, that being Warlord's Ruin at the time. Now let's go to the present, where the objectives are Guild Conqueror, Complete Master Salvation's Edge, Solo the most recent dungeon, and Complete Master Mode of the most recent dungeon, now being Sundered Doctrine. Do you see a pattern here? Rather than building upon the foundation they set here at the beginning, they just put a new coat of paint on it every few months. I believe Guardian ranks really do have potential, but nothing is being done with said potential. While I think that the current system now has some good objectives and serves as a nice base, like I said, it hasn't really grown at all over the past 2 years since it released. So what are some ways to help fix the issues I stated? Well, for one, make the objectives more interactive for newer players by actually explaining what each part of the game is about. What I mean by this is, for example, when players need to talk to each vendor for their objective, just give each vendor a brief summary to say about who they are and what activity they run. As opposed to just reading a paragraph, make the voice actor read it to the player. I seem to have noticed that the game doesn't really explain too much through someone talking to you about it, but rather dumps a paragraph essay for you to read. For example, if a new player visits Saint 14 for the first time ever, Saint can say something like this. Greetings, Guardian. You seem a bit new to the tower, yes? I still remember my first time to the tower. I am Saint 14, the greatest titan to ever live. At least that's what people say about me. I manage the Trials of Osiris, the place where the most prestigious Crucible matches take place. And, because it's so prestigious, I only open it to the Guardians for a short time. There you can test your combat skills against other Guardians and compete to go flawless. Only then will you get the most exclusive rewards I have. Before this, I was trapped inside of a simulation of sorts until Osiris and another Guardian rescued me from within. I am ever grateful to Osiris for freeing me. Without him, I'd be constantly trapped inside the same looping paths of the Vex network. But do not worry, I am much, much better now. Come to me when you want to compete in the Trials of Saint 14. I mean, Trials of Osiris. Don't tell him I said that. As of now, the system doesn't do a good enough job on showing players what to do next. Later on, I'll share my ideas on what each rank objectives should be, but as a more realistic approach, the objectives of the current system don't introduce players on what they should do next. Ranks 1 through 4 are all introductory stuff, and then 5 through 11 are vastly different compared to the previous ones. Progression of the ranks should be a steady linear line as opposed to the massive upwards curve we have currently. And most likely the reason it is this way is that ranks 5 through 11 all reset seasonally. So the more seasoned players don't have to do petty busy work that no one wants to do more than once per season. For example, ranks 1 through 3 should be the introductory objectives, 4 and 5 should be the intermediate objectives, like for the people who are still new to the game but now understand what to expect from the game in terms of gameplay loops and understand the minor core features like bounties, vendors, core playlist, campaigns, etc. Ranks 6 through 9 should be the part where players start to get a feel for difficulty in terms of nightfalls, competitive playlists, dungeons, raids, exotic missions, legendary campaign, and so on. And finally, ranks 10 and 11 should be the pinnacle objectives. The toughest stuff should be here, like GMs, master raids and dungeons, trials or high-ranked comp, solo and solo flawless dungeons, and even time trial raids and dungeons. Time trial stuff here is purely subjective though, I just don't think it's ever really pushed or utilized anymore, so I'd like to see a resurgence of some kind for that stuff. You could also encourage, not mandate, title grind here as well, especially raid titles. Another thing is to give people incentive to actually go for max rank every reset. I will forever say that the game does not have enough in-game earnable cosmetics. Something as simple as an emblem for reaching max rank I think would be great, similar to how the competitive playlist has a unique emblem for reaching max rank. It doesn't have to be an emblem all the time though. It can be a ship, sparrow, armor set, whatever. The only thing it has now is a number next to your name. Here are some examples I found of emblems that could be used for max rank. These are from Emblem Report, and the emblems are in the API but not in the game currently. Have it reset annually rather than seasonally, and yes, I know it's episodically now, but whatever. You can also make the objectives harder to compensate or just make them a little more grindy. If I remember correctly, we're going to a 2-episode model next year or something, so even making it biannually would be better. Also, have Guardian ranks cover all aspects of the game rather than strictly just PvE. The only Crucible representation we have currently is talking to the respective vendors once, and that's it. PvP, Trials, and Gambit don't have any objectives currently for Guardian ranks, even though they are a big enough portion of the game that it should be acknowledged. Guardian ranks should not gatekeep anything from players either. Like what I said before, Guardian ranks prevent players from using mods, buying materials, and even the entire Triumph page from being earned until they reach a certain rank. While I agree that it may be overwhelming to new players to have to learn all about this all at once, they are still vital enough to where they shouldn't be kept from using them at the start. At the very least, players should be able to go to a location, like for example the Enclave or some other location, and have a brief tutorial on how mods work and what upgrade materials do. And then maybe have someone like Ikora at the Enclave explain what Triumphs are. Nothing too lengthy, but just enough to get the general rundown on what everything is. We have enough free content in the game that I think making the Guardian rank system more inclusive by lowering the cost of entry wouldn't change it that much. At the very least, I think it would be acceptable to have just the latest expansion in order to continue the ranks. That would mean you would have access to the newest raid, subclass, campaign, etc. We have 3 free raids as of now with Vault of Glass, King's Fall, and Crota's End, along with Prophecy being the only free dungeon. I agree that maybe having Prophecy being the only free dungeon would make some of the requirements for ranks a little easy. Prophecy isn't the easiest dungeon in the game, but it's most definitely not the hardest either, so I don't know if having that being the only free dungeon is great for ranks. Unless Bungie makes another free dungeon or turns an existing one into one, maybe requiring the latest dungeon key could also be thrown in there. That would give the difficulty needed and give them 2 more dungeons to have to do. And based on how the last few dungeons have been, they'd be up there in difficulty. So to recap, as of now, to do everything in Guardian ranks, you need to own Forsaken, Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, 30th Anniversary, Witch Queen, Lightfall, Final Shape, all 3 dungeon keys, and the Seasonal Pass. For the new system I thought of, you only need to have the latest expansion, that being Final Shape, and maybe the latest dungeon key. As of now, it'd be Vesper's Host and Sunder Doctrine. Right now, the cost of entry for a new player trying to do Guardian ranks is $180, whereas my reformed version is only $60. While still quite a bit, I would like to think people are a little more willing to spend only $60 rather than $180. But I'm not an economics major, so I have no idea how or if this would even change anything. In my head it sounds good, but let me know about this one. I'm open to discussion about this. As I mentioned briefly before, commendations should not be a requirement for this system. It should be something that's purely optional, as if it is a requirement, it kind of loses its meaning. This way, having a high commendation score actually has some significance in telling others that you are patient, or exhibit leadership, or are knowledgeable. This section is just going to be what I think each rank should include and cover. This system I've made only includes 10 ranks, and if you're starting a brand new character, you won't have any rank next to you until you complete rank 1 objectives. So 10 ranks and 83 objectives to go over. Here we go. Rank 1. Obviously this is just going to be the absolute base stuff. Complete a Guardian Rises, complete all subclass quests from Ikora and equip all light subclasses, and interact with everyone in the tower. Rank 2. Learning all about weapons, mods, armor, and subclass effects. What I mean by this is like, what do weapon mods do? Bungie recently introduced some new weapon mods, and while the old ones are quite simple to understand, The newer ones could be briefly explained. What do armor mods do? Bungie made the 3.0 armor mod system during Lightfall and haven't really explained the system in depth inside of the game, like explaining what armor charge is. Blue mods decay your armor charge for a benefit in return, yellow mods consume your armor charge for a benefit in return, and green armor mods affect how you gain armor charge. Then there's subclass effects, and oh my god, is there so much to cover on this nowadays for newer players. Do you want to know how many subclass verbs there are? 30. For just the light subclasses? 18. These include Scorch, Ignition / Ignite, Restoration, Cure, Radiant, Fire Sprite, Amplifies, Blind, Jolted, Ionic Trace, Bolt Charge, Volatile, Suppression, Devour, Weaken, Invisibility, Overshield, and Void Breach. That is a lot for new players to remember, or even learn. If only there was a place where we could simulate subclass verb effects and other damage sources easily and reliably. But such a place does not exist. Rank 3, the Exploration rank, meaning just visit each planet and meet the respective vendors. This will require you to do the intro campaign missions for each respective planet and complete the final shaping campaign. Other objectives can include completing a lost sector on each planet, complete patrols, and kill a certain amount of the unique enemy type of the location. Also having to participate in 3 public events on any planet along with 1 heroic public event. Not too different from the current objectives we have now, but a little more fulfilled. Rank 4, Introduction to the Core Playlist, that being Vanguard Strikes, Casual Crucible Matches, and Gambits. So objectives would be complete 5 Vanguard Strikes, complete 5 Crucible Matches or win 3 Crucible Matches, and complete 5 Gambit Matches or win 3 Gambit Matches. It can also include the introduction to the rank up system for each playlist. Players should also be able to have a choice on what they'd want to focus the most. So another objective could be reach rank 5 or some other rank with Zavala, Shaxx, or the Drifter. While doing the playlists, another objective could be to try and help players utilize their subclass kits by getting ability final blows or something of the sort. So something like 250 ability final blows inside of the strikes, or maybe less ability final blows for Crucible and Gambit. Again, there should be a choice on what players want to focus on while experiencing the game for the first or their returning time. This rank can also include the exotic missions we have now that are both free, that being 0 Hour and the Whisper, so completing both missions can also be introduced here as well. Rank 5, Introduction to the difficulty system we have for PvE, and Introduction to the higher skilled PvP. This includes doing Nightfalls on Advanced and Legend difficulty to introduce champions and non-match made activities. Let's say the objective is to complete a Nightfall on both difficulties. You can also add completing 3 Legend Lost sectors and completing 1 solo as another requirement. This should also teach the player what champions are, as champions don't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. Just a brief tutorial could be great on how to deal with each type of champion, as well as explaining the behaviors of said champion types. Like Unstoppables will rush you, Barriers will play very defensively, and Overloads will play very erratically by teleporting a lot. So an objective for this could be to stun each type of champion 5 times or something. This can also be an opportunity to include the competitive PvP system. Like completing your placement series can be the objective here. Also, you could put in an introduction to trials, as I feel they're on the same level of entry for players. Not the more serious ranks, but just starting, I think they're on a somewhat equal footing. Rank 6, now we get to the repeatable ranks. This can also be the rank that introduces raids and dungeons to the mix. So the objectives here can be completing a total of 3 raids. It doesn't have to be the same raid, but any of the raids available. Completing a total of 3 dungeons, same thing with the raids, doesn't have to be the same dungeon. And I think that both of these could be repeatable. I don't think it's too much to have to do 3 raids and dungeons biannually. Also introducing the Master tier difficulty by having people complete any Master Lost sector and a Master Nightfall. also achieving the gold tier placement inside of the competitive playlist. And then the other repeatable rank can be reaching the current soft power cap. As of now, the cap is 1960. Moving on to the one-time requirements. Acquire 15 total exotic weapons and/or armor. Collect and complete 3 exotic catalysts. And attain a triumph score of 5,000. Rank 7. Reach the current powerful cap. As of now, that's 2010. Complete any Master Lost sector solo and without dying. Obtain 7 wins on any trials ticket. Complete the most currently released dungeon. As of now, that'd be Sunder Doctrine. And obtain the current seasonal vendor weapon. As of now, that would be Resounding from any playlist activities vendor. One-time requirements here can be to earn any title, earn a triumph score of 6,000, complete the legendary version of the Final Shape campaign, obtain and craft 3 raid weapon patterns, obtain a total of 30 exotic weapons and/or armor, and completing 7 exotic catalysts. And for the last thing, complete the exotic mission Dual Destiny. As much as people have complained about being forced to do this mission, it's really not that bad, and you should be forced to do cooperative activities at this point. Probably even earlier, since you'd have to do some raids at this point. Most of the objectives here are just step-ups from previous ones and not really introducing anything new here. Rank 8. Reach the current pinnacle cap. As of now, that's 2020. Complete any Grandmaster difficulty strike. Complete any dungeon solo and without leaving. Complete and win a total of 15 games inside the competitive playlist, and achieve the Adept rank inside the competitive playlist. One-time requirements here can be to earn 3 titles, attain a triumph score of 7,777. Yes, I know it should be 7k even, but it's Bungie's favorite number after all. Acquire any exotic raid weapon, and acquire any exotic dungeon weapon. For these two, maybe changing it to either raid or dungeon weapon here would be better, because of RNG, but one from each activity I think is fine. Acquire each Final Shape exotic weapon, that being Kvastov 7GOX, Still Hunt, Microcosm, and Ergo Sum. And finally, complete the Grandmaster difficulty version of Excision. Rank 9. Now we get into the pinnacle activities. Complete any raid on Master difficulty. Complete any dungeon on Master difficulty. Complete a total of 5 different Grandmaster difficulty Nightfalls. Complete a trials ticket without losing a single game. And hear me out on this one, but how about this? Help Sherpa 15 total people through any raid or dungeon. Now 15 is kind of an arbitrary number here, could be more, could be less, but I will always stand by pushing people to help teach or carry someone through activities they wouldn't normally do. Personally, I think it should be more, but this is just to experiment a little. You can also have a similar thing with trials while we're at it and have you carry 5 people to the lighthouse, or I guess go flawless. I don't know exactly how it works now, but you get the point I'm trying to make. However, I don't know exactly how the game counts a Sherpa, because like Dungeon Report Sherpas and the in-game stat tracker Sherpas are 2 different numbers, and I lean towards Dungeon Report for a more reliable answer. For example, my in-game Sherpas for Vesper's Host is 18, while on Dungeon Report it says it's only 9. That's the repeatable stuff. Now for the one-time stuff. Acquire 75 total exotic pieces of gear, achieve a triumph score of 9,000, complete Vault of Glass, King's Fall, and Crota's End on Master difficulty, and solo flawless any dungeon. Rank 10. Now the prestigious objectives. Earn the most recently released raid's associated title, so as of now that would be Iconoclast from Salvation's Edge. Complete any raid without any member of your team dying and without leaving. Achieve the Ascendant rank in the competitive playlist. Complete the most recently released dungeon solo and flawlessly, that being Sunder Doctrine as of now. And something that I'd like to see Bungie expand upon is time trial raids and dungeons. The in-game stat tracker is just straight up wrong since it counts final checkpoint completions as a full completion for fastest time. So maybe 1, fix the stat tracker to only use fresh clear times, and 2, make triumphs and objectives to promote speed. Now, I don't necessarily mean legit speedrunning, because I know 99% of the players don't actively do that, but if they could somehow get data on the average completion times of the majority of players, cutting out the outliers, then make above average timestamps for each raid and dungeon, they can use that to set benchmarks for each raid and dungeon. For instance, have tiers of completion times: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Bronze time would be completing it very casually, so between X minutes and X minutes. Silver would be slightly faster, and so on. Just as a real example, let's take King's Fall. Let's say the average completion time for King's Fall for 90% of the players is 40 to 45 minutes. I feel that's pretty accurate. Using this data, we can make tiers of times off of it. Bronze tier is 45 minutes plus, silver tier is between 35 to 45 minutes, gold tier is between 25 and 35 minutes, and platinum is 25 minutes and less. These are very rough numbers, but it's just to give you a perspective on what I mean exactly. The point of this objective is to show that you can expertly cooperate with your team and achieve respectable times to show for that. Plus, if they fix the time stat tracker, you can display that time on an emblem as well. I don't know how hard it'd be to do something like this for every raid and dungeon, but nonetheless I think it'd be a very nice addition. So the actual objective here would be to achieve a platinum time in 3 different raids and 3 different dungeons. As a side note, if such a system were implemented, and had a speed time criteria for every raid and dungeon, you could also make another title where you get a platinum time in every raid and dungeon. It might be a little lazy, but Speedrunner could be a good title name for it. And for the last repeatable, help Sherpa/carry 30 people through raids, dungeons, and or trials. It would just be Sherpa 15 more people because of the previous triumph. And for the one-time requirements, achieve a triumph score of 10,000, earn a total of 7 titles, complete any Grandmaster difficulty Nightfall solo, and complete a Flawless Trials passage on 5 different maps. Well, there you have it, my personal interpretation of Guardian ranks. Obviously feel free to disagree, and of course let me know if I missed anything that you feel I should have included. I tried to structure it in a way that covered almost everything the game has to offer, while keeping in mind the rule set I had established in the beginning. And I am curious, if you feel that Guardian ranks are fine as they are right now, let me know why you think that. While I personally believe that they need to be improved, I'm not everyone. Like, I personally am forever a rank 5, and I've heard multiple times by people that I sure as hell don't play like one. I have also seen many other people who are low ranks play like demons. I've also seen the opposite, sorta. Like a rank 11 Guardian not really play as well as you'd think they would for being that high. I'm sure many of you have encountered both ends of the stick as well. Anyways, that's about all I have to say on this subject, so till next time, see ya.